Invisible Woman, Sue Storm, is a fun and highly adaptable strategist capable of totally bullying the opposing team in Marvel Rivals. And like most strategists in this game, her primary role is of course to heal teammates, but she's also great at controlling space, and she can get her fair share of eliminations too. Plus, her ultimate is absolutely bonkers. There's quite a lot going on with her abilities, and in this guide I'm going to show you how to play Invisible Woman effectively, her weaknesses, and most of all, how to have fun playing as her. Let's talk about Invisible Woman's playstyle first. There's a lot of flexibility with it, and you'll need to take on a lot of different roles throughout your matches if you want to maximize her support and area controlling abilities. In general terms, you want to play Sue behind the front line like most strategist or healer type heroes, but you still want to be close to the action, and sometimes you want to be pushing up as well. This is primarily because your piercing attacks as Invisible Woman can act like heals and damage at the same time. So in a perfect world, you're lining up shots that heal your teammates while damaging your opponents. If you're simply hanging back and you're away from the action at all times, you're not maximizing her usefulness, although of course you will definitely still need to dip out of the action at times to self-heal, and we'll get to that in a sec. The thing is, you're not just healing with your attacks though, no, you're going to find yourself constantly placing area of effect heals around your teammates that need it, so you need to pay attention to everything that's going on around you. When you watch a good Sue Storm player, it should look like what they're doing is simple and easy, but really there should be a lot going on in that player's head with constant quality decision making that benefits the team. Now, the other big component of Invisible Woman is her ability to control space. She has abilities and an ultimate that basically tells the other team, no, you're not going into this part of the map for a bit unless you want to get shredded by the rest of my team. Her area control can turn team fights around or clutch moments if your team is just a little bit coordinated, and as an Invisible Woman player, you always have to be able to assess the battlefield and the current situation to determine if popping off area control would benefit your team in that moment. There's no real downside to it except for a lengthy cooldown, so it's not a matter of hurting your team directly, it's more of a hurting your team indirectly if you pop it off in the wrong spots or at the wrong time. But what's really nice is that you can use her area control abilities in both offensive and defensive ways, so you can help your team with pushes, or you can simply stall the opposing side if you need to buy some time. This can be especially useful in overtime situations or just close matches in general. Plus, her ultimate ability alone is enough to end or pause team fights or pushes. It's really fantastic. Sue's control of space also enables her to get away from divers like Iron Fist, or maybe even save your teammates in general from them. She has push and pull abilities that you can combo with her area control nicely, so your survivability is actually quite high as long as your decision making is decent or relatively decent. Of course, your strategists still need the rest of the team to actually provide true anti-dive support, but it's really nice to have kind of a support character that in the backline can provide anti-dive support. And don't forget that you can quickly jump out of combat, go invisible, and heal yourself as well. Now, does that sound like a lot? Because it is a lot. You can heal, you can damage, you can control space, you can help keep your backline safe, you can go invisible, you can even have your entire bakery hanging out in a premium skin for all of you peach connoisseurs. Oh, and she also has a team up with Mr. Fantastic to buff his health. There's so much going on with Invisible Woman, she can play around any situation, any team composition, but you really have to understand the game at a reasonable level if you want to use her to her maximum potential when it comes to playing against high skill level opponents. So in a way, her greatest strength is her greatest weakness as well, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. And by the way, if you're interested in learning more about other Marvel Rivals heroes or just want more tips, be sure to check out my other guides on the channel as well. For now, what I want you to remember is that Invisible Woman can be used for constantly healing your team while damaging the opposition, controlling space, and providing some bonus anti-dive support. Let's talk about Sue's Orb Projection normal attack, which is your basically bread and butter with her. So she sends out these little force field orbs that can heal your teammates and damage your opponents, and they pierce through everyone before they return to you. So ideally you're firing these orbs into big crowds to maximize their usefulness, though of course that's not always possible. There's no damage fall off on her orbs, but they also don't have the world's longest range, and you cannot get critical hits with them. That's important to know. So you don't need to aim for those headshots. Although the orbs are not silver bullets per se, just the fact that you can damage and heal in the same breath is amazing. The orbs travel at decent speeds, you have a good amount of them before reloading, and currently Invisible Woman is a team-up anchor that's getting a healing bonus for her orbs. Really, you want to be constantly firing your orbs, and you want to try to be as accurate as possible with your aim because they don't really stick to teammates like Rocket Raccoon's orbs, for example, so this is an aim-centric character. Now let's talk about the Guardian Shield. This is an ability that has Invisible Woman spawn a mini shield at the teammate she's targeting and the shield just stays there in that spot. It does not follow the teammate. This shield can tank some damage, of course, but its true value lies in the fact that the shield provides health regeneration to anyone that's near it. Plus, it slows down enemies that walk through it. So not only do you have a small area of effect heal, but you can constantly recast the shield on different teammates as long as the shield itself has some HP left. So you constantly want to be moving this shield around in order to maximize its usefulness, and you can even manually recall it to recharge its health faster than the full cooldown for the ability when the shield gets broken. Micromanaging the shield well is probably going to be one of the main factors that separates a top tier invisible player from just someone who's average or above average. It does take a lot of effort, consideration, and quick thinking, but it's totally worth it. Now let's move on to area control, starting with Sue's Psionic Vortex. She can throw down a bubble that damages opponents, slows them down, and pulls them towards that bubble's center. I say bubble, but I think technically it's a force field, whatever, you know what I mean. The Psionic Vortex is a great tool for stopping a team dead in its tracks, or slowing them down, or slowing down a diving character while your teammates wipe the floor with them. It's an essential part of Invisible Woman's abilities that you should be using as often as you can. However, it does have a pretty big cooldown, but that's because it can be so powerful. And while it's a good ability on its own, it can be extra good if you combo it with your ultimate or with your force physics push and pull abilities. So Invisible Woman can push opponents away or bring them in with an ability that makes her great at temporarily stopping divers, placing opponents in her Psionic Vortex, or even just pushing them off the map if you get a little bit lucky with it. Just remember, the range for her pushing is bigger than the range for her pulling. They're not the same ranges, even though it is one ability that you trigger and then you pick whether you want to push or pull. The more you play with Sue, the more creative you'll get with your Psionic Vortexes or Vortices, is that? I don't know. And force physics, but the main thing I want you to remember is that the Psionic Vortexes or Vortices, I don't know, can be used both as an offensive tool to bully the opposing team, but they can also be used as a defensive tool when you need to get out of a situation or when you just need to slow down the enemy team like in overtime. By the way, I absolutely love Invisible Woman's Invisible Boundary Ultimate. She drops a huge force field that provides major healing and makes your teammates invisible in it, all while slowing down enemies that are in its radius. It's the type of game-changing ultimate that nobody on the opposing team wants to interact with because they know if they go inside, they're going to be at a disadvantage. And they know that you can pop off your Psionic Vortex in it, you can pull in players with your force physics. It's just a really great ultimate. Honestly, this Invisible Boundary Ultimate is so amazing that I doubt its launch tuning is going to remain in place for too long. But even its debuffed version would still be good, unless it's just like completely neutered, obviously, but it's such a great ultimate. For lower skilled opponents, it's a great way to sucker them in and have your teammates kind of shred them. For higher skilled opponents, it's a great way to dominate space and time. I mean, its benefits aren't mutually exclusive to those skill groups, but the way that kind of lower skilled versus higher skill opponents react to it is different. Now, if you take yourself out of the action for a while, Sue Storm will go into an invisible state which heals her over time. So that means if you're not getting hit and you're not pushing any buttons other than movement, you'll go invisible after a bit and automatically heal up. So anytime you're invisible, you're healing up. You can also use her double jump called Veiled Step to manually enter the invisible state. Now this ability has a longer than you might expect cooldown, so usually you want to save it for when you need to get out of trouble. The double jump also has a bit of a boost to it so you can cover a bigger distance, and really this is your main and pretty much only maneuverability option. But between the self-healing, the invisibility, and your general positioning, Sue is really great at staying alive for long periods of time. If you play her well, you'll notice that you're oftentimes getting eliminated much less than other strategist heroes. But let's move on to Invisible Woman's weaknesses now. So she has no true maneuverability options outside of the jump we just mentioned, and her positioning is very predictable even if you can't see her. When the other team has an Invisible Woman, you know where she's going to be most of the time. But really, her main weakness indirectly comes from her biggest strength, which is the fact that she can do so many different things. Simply put, she can be exhausting to play because you have to split your attention across so many different areas. And if you're not particularly skilled, you'll probably end up spreading yourself too thin or tunnel visioning yourself into only one of her areas of expertise. So if you end up doing that, you're sort of wasting one of your strategist roles on your team, and you're not really going to be benefiting the team all that much. Plus, you're probably not going to have a whole lot of fun. If you're looking for a more chill hero to play as, something more passive or something where you don't have to have as many actions per minute or think as much, Invisible Woman is probably not the character or the hero for you. But what do you think about Invisible Woman? Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions or if there's anything you'd want to see changed about her. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe for more Marvel Rivals videos. Cheers!